The sun cast long and steady shadows across the polished wooden benches of the courtroom as the doors swung open to admit those seeking resolution. It was a day meant for clarity and the restoration of order. Within these walls, the atmosphere was thick with the weight of personal histories and the hope for a fair hearing. This was a hall of justice where the Honorable Judge Judy Justice presided, a woman whose reputation for wisdom was built upon 50 years of dedicated service to the law. The bailiff called the room to order with a voice that commanded immediate respect. He instructed everyone to rise as the judge entered the chambers. Once she was seated, he invited the attendees to take their seats. Among them was Lucretia Gaines, a woman who felt she had been deeply wronged, and Dwight Francis, her former brother-in-law, who stood as a defendant in this civil dispute. The case was recorded as number 3030, titled Gaines versus Francis. Judge Justice looked over the documents before her with a keen and practiced eye. She began the proceedings by identifying the individuals present. Lucretia Gaines had brought a witness with her, a woman who shared her face and her spirit. This was Lucinda Gaines, her twin sister. The relationship between these individuals was complex, as Lucinda had been married to Dwight Francis, though they were now officially divorced as of August 18, 2022. The events that had brought them to this moment, however, had taken place much earlier, in the month of November in the year 2020. The core of the disagreement involved allegations of assault and false arrest. Both Lucretia and Dwight claimed that they had been the victim of the other's aggression. The judge sought to understand the environment of that time. It was established that in November 2020, the marriage between Lucinda and Dwight was under great strain. Lucinda had frequently expressed her concerns to her sister, fearing that Dwight was attempting to orchestrate situations to get her into legal trouble. On the 8th day of November, a significant phone call took place. The two sisters were engaged in their daily ritual of connection. They were sitting on the phone, chatting warmly as they always did. Their conversation was filled with the light-hearted sounds of laughter and the shared stresses of their academic pursuits. They talked about their schoolwork and the important tests they both had coming up. It was a scene of sisterly support and positive energy, a moment where two women were striving to better their lives through education. However, the peaceful nature of their conversation was suddenly interrupted. Lucretia, listening from the other end of the line, overheard a voice that changed the mood entirely. It was the voice of Dwight Francis. She heard him issue a challenge, suggesting they fight and handle their differences without the involvement of the police. He repeated the suggestion, stating they could fight right at that moment. Lucretia was startled by the sudden shift in tone. The judge asked for a precise account of what was heard. Lucinda confirmed that Dwight had made those remarks. Lucretia described how she felt a sense of concern, but initially decided to hang up the phone. She told herself that perhaps it was a private matter between a husband and a wife, something they would navigate together. But as 20 minutes passed, her worry grew. She began to call her sister back repeatedly. When Lucinda finally answered, the news was distressing. Lucinda believed she was going to be taken to jail because Dwight had called the authorities. Driven by a protective instinct and a desire to care for her young nephew, Lucretia decided to drive over to the house. She remembered a previous occasion in October 2020 when Lucinda had been arrested for domestic violence, and she was concerned about the well-being of the child in the home. Her intention, as she described it, was simple and humanitarian. She wanted to ensure the safety of her family. When Lucretia arrived at the residence, she found Dwight standing outside on the sidewalk. She exited her vehicle and approached him. In her account, she asked him why he continued to call the police on her sister. She claimed that without warning, Dwight punched in the face, knocking her off the curb and onto the concrete. She described a terrifying scene where she was trapped near a car while he continued to strike her. She pointed to marks on her hands, claiming they were defensive wounds sustained while trying to protect her head. The judge listened with patience, but also with the skepticism that comes from decades of experience. She examined the evidence of the injuries. She noted that the cuts on Lucretia's knuckles did not appear to be defensive in nature. Instead, they were more consistent with the marks one receives from striking another person. The judge reminded Lucretia to be careful with her words, as the physical evidence often tells a story that differs from personal memory. Dwight Francis was then given the opportunity to share his perspective. He explained that he had been the one to call the police because he felt provoked by Lucinda. He claimed that he had gone outside to wait for the arrival of the officers. According to his testimony, Lucretia arrived in her car at a high speed and approached him with an aggressive attitude. He alleged that she was the one who initiated the physical contact and that he was merely trying to defend himself and escape the situation. He stated that he attempted to walk away toward a nearby hospital to find safety. The turning point of the trial came when the official police report was introduced. The judge read the document carefully. The report stated that when the officers arrived, they found both parties on Kensington Street. Crucially, the report noted that Lucretia had told the officers at the scene that after an initial verbal argument, a fight broke out. She had admitted to police that when Dwight began to walk away toward Chapel Street, she ran after him and continued to fight until the police arrived. This revelation was significant. It suggested that even if there had been a mutual disagreement, Lucretia had chosen